How's it going, everyone? I'm the one and only Kaiju Sage. Welcome back to a new video, and in today's video, we're going to try to answer a pretty simple question, or actually, no, it's not a very simple question at all, but is Path of Exile too difficult for new players? What does that mean for this game to be difficult in all of its different aspects? Is it actually too difficult? And potentially, what are some solutions? I'm going to save the full solutions for a third video that I'm going to make on Wednesday. But for now, we're going to talk about the topic of, is Path of Exile too difficult for new players? If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. I really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for everything that for all the support you've given me lately. Let's keep rolling this ball forward and let's see what we can achieve. So, without further ado, let's talk about difficulty in Path of Exile. What does it look like? What does it mean for a new player? So, for starters, think about when if you were to install the game today. Think about if you just, if a friend came to you and said, "Hey, there's this really cool game that I found out about. It's a free-to-play game. You can install it right now. It's called Path of Exile." You install Path of Exile, you launch it, you open it, you create your first character, and already you are brought to this screen right here. So, for the first distinction, let's separate difficulty and complexity into two separate things. Let's, just for the sake of argument, separate these into two different aspects. Because if you want to talk about complexity as a layer of difficulty, which it arguably is, this video is going to be a lot longer because a big barrier and hurdle for new players of Path of Exile is it is an extremely complex game. So for the sake of just analyzing difficulty of the game, just the difficulty of the game, we're going to set aside complexity. And like I said, I will deal with that issue on the video that I'm making on Wednesday, where I talk about how to fix Path of Exile's difficulty. I'll make an entire video talking about that separately. So let's just analyze the difficulty. So you are met with this screen. So already you can kind of have some ability to choose. You have some ability to kind of pick what you want to do, right? It does tell you, default game mode, which is a little deceiving, I guess, but for a new player who's never installed the game before, it might be good for them to play standard, right? Nothing will change. They don't lose anything at the end of, 3 months. Standard is fine. It's fine for a new player to learn the game and play the game and learn how to play, right? But they also miss out on the current, the reason that people play Path of Exile is the challenge leagues. That every 3 months, you get to start over again. You get to play this new mechanic that may or may not go core, and that would be, added to standard Path of Exile. So you could be missing out on that if you don't know. That is not really a difficulty thing, but just a complexity and a sad thing to overcome. Anyway. Solo Self-Found and Ruthless. You can see on there, Solo Self-Found, Ruthless, and Hardcore over on the left side of things. If you check any of these boxes, you add additional layers of difficulty to the game. For those that don't know, just briefly, I'll say it. Solo Self-Found means you cannot trade and you cannot party up with other people. You are literally only going to get your loot, your items, work by yourself to complete everything in Path of Exile alone. You can transition out of Solo Self-Found if you so choose at a later date. It is a literal, on your character, there's a thing that says transition to standard or transition to normal to trade sanctum or whatever. So you can get out of Solo Self-Found. If you do Ruthless is something that was added this league out of I think it's still in its beta technically, but it is basically Path of Exile if it were if you got 90% less loot, essentially, or probably closer to 60, 70% less loot, and you have to fight and struggle to find rares, you will probably almost never find uniques, and it is substantially more difficult Path of Exile. There's also some additional layers, but go watch a video breakdown of Ruthless if you want to know all the details. It's just harder. So, what about the actual difficulty of the game? Once you actually create a character, you actually begin playing the game, and you're actually like getting in there, and you've actually made your character. You make a witch and you get your fireball and you run up the beach. You get arcane surge. You've got the 2-link. Hopefully you can figure it out that you're supposed to, with the tutorial menus and everything that pop up, you can figure out how to get started. From there, you go and you get your first skill point. Let's say you get your first skill point and you open the skill tree. Now, again, like I said, for the sake of things, complexity we have separated from difficulty, but it's difficult as well to understand what you're looking at when you first look at the skill tree. Because when you very first open the skill tree, if you for any reason scroll wheel back and pull out, you can get lost very, very easily, very quickly, and just like, what am I looking at? Once you actually, grit down and look at it and see where you have to put your points in from, it's just lines. It's just you go in a straight line from your start one way or another, and you have usually 4 paths. And yeah, you just kind of find your way through, pick things that look good overall, and I would say follow a build guide, because that's the best advice that people can give. Because Path of Exile, as much as people don't want to, if you don't want to admit it, but a lot of people would say this, Path of Exile is a difficult game to understand, because the best advice for a new player is just follow a build guide, because if you try to make your own, you're going to get lost, you're not going to know what you're doing, and you're not going to know what is good to use. That's a definite, defining characteristic of a hard game. So, difficulty. Monsters, right? You run across in Act 1, you run across zombies and really slow monsters. Not really anything that dangerous. You probably might die on some bosses and things. Act 2, things start to speed up a bit, and you're going to start running into things that can start really kind of messing you up. Act 3 and 4, same deal. None of it's really too hard. And then you cross into, Act 5. And especially Act 5 and beyond, you start really ramping up the game, right? It is difficult at that point. You start encountering, especially around Act 4 and then 5 and beyond, rares and blue monsters really start showing up and start really, really ramping up. And it also depends on how much your knowledge of the game is. But again, we're talking about from a new player's perspective. Imagine if you're still wearing your Act 1 gear, you've died 60, 70 times, you've made your way finally to Act 5, and you're still using a 2, maybe a 3-link, hoping that you read the tutorials. Path of Exile is a difficult game. That is the kind of general summary of things, even if you take aside the complexity of the systems and that it's hard to understand for a brand new player. It is still a difficult game, right? You still have to kind of, especially for me, it's even hard to analyze it from this perspective, right? Because I'm thinking to myself, oh no, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. But I was talking to one of my friends, and he was like, yeah, man, I just keep dying. I keep getting off-screened by things. I keep dying to this and this and this. And he was talking about, goats in Act 1, the goats that, shoot the fireballs and stuff. Or, he was dying to, other different off-screen effects. He made it to Act 6, and he was having a terrible time once he got to the point where those, the water things are shooting ice bolts at you, and he just didn't know what to do. Path of Exile is a difficult game, and it's one that requires you, almost in Dark Souls-like fashion, in some regards, to just kind of die your way forward as you learn what things are, what things do. You die to bosses as you learn what their moves and mechanics are, and then you learn and you play and you keep dying and you keep dying. Some players don't do that. They die a couple times and then they're like, I hate this. I don't want to play this. I'm dying all the time. I'm terrible. I'm bad. I had another friend who tried to play this league, and he literally stopped playing the game because he died like 4 or 5 times in Act 1, and he was like, I don't want to play anymore. This game, I'm bad at this game. I don't know what I'm doing, and he gave up. But the question of it all is, difficulty. Like, is it a difficult game for new players? Absolutely, yes. And I mean, I don't want to sit here and talk to y'all for the rest of, the day, because I could. There's a lot of difficulty in the game, right? I didn't even address, like once you make it through the campaign, you make it to maps, and then you have more scaling difficulty, more scaling difficulty, more scaling difficulty. You can roll modifiers on your maps. You can do end-game bosses. You can do uber end-game bosses, which can kill even like extremely excessively tanky builds if you're not careful. Path of Exile, in summary, yes, it is a very difficult game for new players. Tomorrow, I'm going to make a similar video in Is Path of Exile too easy for veteran players? And there I'll talk more about the uber bosses and the end game of Path of Exile. But for this video, I think it's starting to go a little long, so I'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Yes, Path of Exile is a difficult game for new players. Is it too difficult? Not really. I mean, it just takes time and learning and investment. If you enjoy the game, then continue playing it. Don't worry about dying some. Look up a build guide, and you'll get there. It's definitely a challenging game, though. So just enjoy the ride. Try not to get so worried about dying, and just play the game and enjoy it as best you can. Enjoy playing the game itself. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you all being here. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like if you're new here. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you for a new video tomorrow.